So apart from the platform that will be presented today, we have already developed this repository of green competences that you will find online. So there's 3 documents that correspond to it. So you can either play with a more interactive tool that we have prepared as a board game, but you can also see the full list of the competences and get more information on the background work that we did and the methodology. In addition, we have travel patterns of student. So under the informational figures, you will find a very visually and clear way of representing the environmental impact per mode of transport between popular Erasmus destinations. And in relation to this, you will also find connectivity reports. And the connectivity reports will also be presented a bit later. Of course, we have more deliverables as part of this project. So we will have some policy recommendations and other documents towards the end of the project, and the Sustainable Erasmus Journey that is more linked to the campaign that, as I said, we will be launching later in 2025, and you will hear more about it towards the end of the webinar. I just wanted to also give a highlight to this repository of green competences. Again, I think that some of you have seen this already, but for those that are seeing this for the first time, we came up with this idea of visualizing the green competences repository in a more interactive and enticing way for students, because the students are, at the end of the day, the target group for this project. So of course, we have a more static PDF document with a repository and the background and how they link to green travel, but we also prepare this interactive board game where each tile represents a different competence. So you can hover your mic, your mouse, and you can click on the different tiles to learn. For example, in this way, I gave an example of one of the competences that is planning. And you can see just below the name of the competence, a short definition on what this competence means more broadly in its more transversal sense. But then just below, you will also find a more specific definition that corresponds to the specific experience of a student traveling green to and from their mobility destination. Similarly to the board game, we also attended the EA conference back in September 2024 with this poster. That is another way to visually represent what we mean by the repository of green competences. So in this process, we collaborated with a student from the University of Porto. Porto is, of course, one of the partners in the SET project. And she was able to design this very nice poster for us, where again, we wanted to highlight the potential of developing different green competences as a student and how they can be celebrated and recognized towards the end of the journey. And this is a winning poster because for those that are familiar with the EA conference, we were voted by the other participants as one of the best or more interesting posters at the conference. So it was very interesting to present it at the conference last year. So from my side, this is a very, very quick recap of what the project is about and some of the things that we have done already and the other deliverables. And I think, yeah, if you have more questions or if you're curious to learn more, I would indeed invite you to check our website, and more information will be shared about our upcoming activities towards the end of the webinar. But of course, we're here today because we want to learn all about the Sustainable Erasmus Journey platform. And so from my side, this is it for now. And I will give the floor now to Annie to guide us through her platform.
Hi again, everyone. So yeah, today I'll be presenting to you first erasmusgeneration.org, and more specifically, the brand new content we just released related to the Sustainable Erasmus Journey project, aiming at promoting green travel to mobile students. So to do that, I'm gonna share my screen. Right. So to access the content, you go to erasmusgeneration.org by typing the address in your browser, and you arrive on the homepage, the home of the Erasmus Generation. Erasmusgeneration.org has been designed for students to be the one-stop shop for exploring mobility opportunities, calculating grants, sharing stories, and diving into the Erasmus Generation blog that you can access here. I'm gonna show you briefly all of that before getting into the part that interests us today. So students can access info about mobilities by clicking on Mobility Program here. They can also find information by countries by clicking here, selecting a country. We also have our popular grant simulator that is accessible by clicking on the Simulate Your Grant here, and testimonials, but more on that later. The platform also links to the Green Erasmus project that you can access on the top menu here, where you can find a lot of tips and resources about how to be sustainable before, during, and after mobility. So now with the Sustainable Erasmus Journey project, we've introduced this travel green content that you can access from the main menu link here. In the framework of the project, the University of Zurich prepared 3 connectivity reports that summarize comprehensive data on the availability of direct bus and train connection, including overnight services from Zurich, Porto, and Prague to the 5 most popular mobility destinations. The analysis specifically emphasizes rail and bus transportation, as these modes are generally considered the most environmentally sustainable. And for further insights about the climate impact of these routes, you can access here the fact sheets. So here we've tried to give you a glimpse of the connectivity maps. So you can see this interactive map where you can click on the city and zoom in and navigate to access the travel times to the 5 most popular destinations. We've also highlighted we also have some highlights here. And of course, we encourage you to actually download the PDF version that contains a lot of detailed information and as well as ideas of possible stopovers. We've also added green guides from university with tips and more for a sustainable life on mobility. That would be it for me for this first part of the presentation. Thank you for listening. And yes, if you have any question, I will do my best to answer them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Annie, for the presentation. I just shared also on the chat the link for everyone to have access to it. But I think that if there are questions, we can use the chat at the moment. And we also have with us Nadine, who was also behind the preparation of the connectivity reports from the University of Zurich, also partner of the SET consortium. So if she also wants to give some more context and details as to the work that they did for the connectivity reports, I'm sure that everyone would be very happy and interested to hear more about it. So nice to have you also here, Nadine.
Thank you, Salome, and thank you, Annie. I hope you can hear me and see me. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, it was a really big project, but also a really fun project. And we started with the fact sheets and a lot of data analysis and research and more the empirical work. And then and those are really interesting to also look at the emissions generated by going with different transport modes. That should also a little bit influence on how you choose, and with some extra tips and tricks on how to travel more sustainable. And then the connectivity reports were more like a fun project also, because we have a lot of train enthusiasts in our team. And so those connectivity report, the goal was to show that traveling is not only about getting from point A to B, but also having it being an experience and having multiple stopovers and experience the travel that you're doing. And so I talked a lot with different people from our team, and a lot of people did a lot of train travels. So we also collected some fun facts on the ways and places where to stop, and had some inputs of a lot of people. For example, in France, there's a place where you go with the train over like a bridge, and you have to see on both sides of the train windows, and you can see flamingos from time to time from the window from the train, which is really cool. Or there's another train track that ends at the sea, and you go on a ferry by train and cross the sea by ferry on the train, which is really interesting. So there's a lot of fun facts on it as well, and you can look at places to stop and things to see and things to learn about. And it was also really, or which is also really important to, while planning traveling, is looking at direct connections or night connections, because you can save a lot of time by just sleeping on trains. And it was really interesting to see on which parts of Europe night trains are really popular, while other parts are really difficult to travel through. And you can find all those informations on the connectivity reports. We also try to include important links where you can find all the information. And if you travel somewhere where you found some tips and tricks on the connectivity report, please let me know. Really excited to hear what you have done with those. So have a look, and yeah, it was really, really fun to work on those projects.
Thank you, Nadine, for giving us more context into the work that you did. And of course, for us, it's your work has been very, very helpful. But now that you were saying flamingos, I have to say that recently in February, we traveled by train to Barcelona for the Student Mobility Summit. More mobility, less carbon footprint. It's an annual event that the EUF is co-organizing with the University of Barcelona. And of course, the topic was all about promoting environmental sustainability, policies and practices in higher education and international higher education in particular. So yeah, we took the train from Brussels, from Benelux, with my colleagues, and on the way back, we did actually see the flamingos because we were passing through a reservoir protected area in the south of France near Perpignan, I think. I really felt the connection between what we were trying to promote and do with this project and my real life experience. So it was really nice to see that. There's a resonance between the work that we do and real life experiences of us. So I can also hope that more students can have a similar positive experience as we did. But of course, there's many stories from many different corners of Europe that we can add. And I see that we have one question coming in from Philippa Menzel. So thank you and welcome to the webinar to you as well. And you're asking whether there are plans to cross-reference this data with the routes that students are actually taking. That is, an easy sustainable option exists. When an easy sustainable option exists, are mobile students actually taking it? So if I understand this question is just to keep track and gather data on the actual travel routes of students when a sustainable option exists and how it's easy. And I think that in the context of the SET project, it's a bit outside of a scope and the resources that we have to track on a broader European level what the students are actually doing in the routes. But what I can already say is that as part of the student campaign that we will be launching next year, we are definitely highlighting and focusing on the sustainable travel journeys of students. So we are going to actually talk with students who are preparing for their mobility, and we're going to prepare them and guide them for a very positive green travel experience. And we don't know exactly who those students are going to be and what journeys they're going to take, but we can expect different journeys, different travels. Some are going to be easier than others, but it will be very interesting for us also to see how adventurous and how committed more students are to taking a step further and committing to a journey that is maybe more complicated than a direct flight, which is still to this day the most prominent case for students and more broadly speaking, of course. So thank you for the question, Filipa. I don't know if someone else from my colleagues from ESN wants to add something here, or we can go to the next question from Irene.
Maybe I
Yes,
can just
Nelly.
mention that just to build on what you already said, that from our perspective, what motivates students the most is hearing from their peers and like hearing about the experiences of other students. So this will be part of our campaign that will be launched towards the end of this spring semester, where we would really have a more massive social media campaign to promote sustainable travel, slow travel, and this kind of choices in general, but mostly also to showcase the experiences of those selected students that Salome already mentioned. And that's why you will also see in the second part of the webinar the importance for us for also giving testimonials about the journeys.
Thank you for your contribution, Nelly. Then I will now go to another question from Irene. Also, hello to you and thank you for joining this webinar. So your question has to do with a green travel grant that in some cases students get regardless of their mode of transport. But from what I've seen, the guides are definitely not in line with this. So as of 2025, of course, every student gets a travel grant that is dependent on the distance band, so the kilometers that you travel. So it starts, it's a list of different distance bands between 0 kilometers to 99, and then it goes on and on. And so the bigger, the longer the distance, the more money the student gets. But then if they choose to travel green, they have an additional let's say top up or even more money that they can get that corresponds to their green mode of transport and also to the distance band. So as of 2025, the rules are that the money that you get for your traveling depends on the mode of transport and also the distance band that you're covering. So I hope this answers your question, Irene. Thank you. And then we have one more question from Anya. So hello to you too. And you're asking whether there's plans to further extend the connectivity map with more cities and their top destinations. So this is indeed a very relevant question for us because as everything that has to do with the connectivity reports, we were a bit limited to the main cities that are represented in the SET consortium. So we have detailed connectivity reports if you are starting from Zurich, Prague, and Porto, and the top destinations starting from those cities. But it's not confirmed yet, but we are maybe trying to also expand the connectivity reports with more cities because we have done a lot of work for the fact sheets. So the top 10 cities of origin also outside of those 3 cities that I just mentioned. But we are trying to see the resources that we have and the scope of this project to expand a bit more. But I think from a research point of view and like from our interest, of course, we would be very interested to expand more. I think Nadine would agree with me on this, unless she wants to add something. But yes, we will try to make as much as we can. Of course, as I said, respecting the time and the resources that we have. But yeah, this is the starting point now.
And if I can add also, I think from a web perspective, we would be also I've also discussed this with my IT colleague, and we think it would be also great to add more cities and include them maybe in the country views on erasmusgeneration.org. So yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, I can also add, I mean, it would be in our interest as well to also expand it a bit, but we're still talking about it. And yeah, it would also be really cool to find a solution with a web program and have it all connected together and have it easy to find in one place. But we're working on it. So yeah.
And it's good to know that there's also interest from your side to expand our maps and our lists. So thank you for your questions. I think that for the moment, we can go back to Annie for the testimonial, but I think the chat is still open if something else comes up later on. So if Annie is ready, we can now see what those student testimonials are all about.
Yes. Yeah, so as I said, we also have testimonials on the platform that I'm quickly gonna show you right here. So you can go to the testimonials link and then browse them like that by scrolling, or you can also actually search by country or search by mobility program. Once you find one testimonial that seems to interest you, you can check it by clicking on the read more, and here is how it looks like. And so in the context of the SET project, we've added sustainable travel category here. And so you can leave a testimonial specifically related to sustainable travel. And now for this webinar, I'm gonna show you how you actually submit a testimonial. So let's say we have Alex Smith, who is Slovak, who has the email address alexsmith@gmail.com. And countries of studies, let's say Czechia, mobility destination, Spain, mobility program, let's say Erasmus Plus. You can also mention your sending institution and hosting institution. They will actually not be displayed on the public page. And then a quote that will be used to highlight your testimonial. So I'm going to quickly copy paste. And then we hope that you will feel inspired to leave a more detailed testimonial about your stay. And then hopefully you have something specific to say about sustainable travel. and then you can click on submit. So your testimonial will actually not be automatically published. We at ESN, the communication team is in charge of reviewing those testimonials before we publish them. So I'm gonna quickly approve it for the purpose of this demo. So I can show you how it will look like. All right. And so we now have our testimonial here, and we can check the full version here. Voilà, that's it.
Thank you, Annie, for guiding us through the process of submitting and approving and showcasing the fictional, but also inspired from true events, student testimony about a nice green travel experience. So yeah, I'm hoping that the demonstration was clear. As you can see, yeah, it's the form itself is very straightforward and is very user friendly. Of course, it is very much targeting students. So if you are working with students, and I think most of you are in some capacity, and you weren't aware of this portal before, I think it would be very useful for you and interesting to disseminate this and invite your students who have had specific green travel experience in their mobility to make use of the platform so that we can feed more of nice testimonies that, as Nelly said, are very, very important about carrying the message and incentivizing more students to travel green. And I think we have now one specific question about the platform, Annie. You were asking Filipa if there's a way to filter according to the topic when browsing the testimonials.
So actually, at the moment, no, but this is definitely something that we should look into it as we are expanding the topics, and also we highlight them more now. So yeah, not right now, but hopefully very soon. Also, I see there was a question about how we created the map. So actually, our website are done in the framework called Drupal. We are not sharing the code. They are custom code that we create with my colleague. But basically, these are in the end basic PHP and JavaScript plus CSS for the style. Is it planned to connect the portal to the EU survey that all participants have to submit? I don't know. I will leave the floor. I see Salome nodding. I will leave.
Yes, thank you for the questions. It's nice to see that you're interested about the work that we've done. So just to answer to the question about the potential integration of connection with other existing forms or platforms. And I think that for a moment, as I said, we are working in a very limited time frame for the set project. And so it is not foreseen yet to expand and link with other evaluation forms that mobile students are filling. But this is something that we could potentially look into for future work. But for the moment, this is kind of a standalone, and we wanted to support the Erasmus Generation portal that already has a lot of interesting resources and tools for students and that they know. So at the moment, this is where we are with the platform. But thank you for the question. And I see that previously we had another question from Hannah, whether this portal that we are presenting, whether it's also for staff. And it's very much targeted at students. It's hosted by Erasmus Student Network. It's the Erasmus Generation portal, and it's about students at the moment. So we don't have a platform yet for also staff mobility. But if this is something that you would find helpful, you can reach out to us and we can talk about it. So we have one more question that I'm going to read out loud. How do you assess the payment of travel costs for all Erasmus participants, green and non-green, and at the same time the promotion of sustainable travel? Do you see any contradiction here? So it's a very specific and relevant question, I think, mostly for the universities. I think from what we have seen, different universities have a bit of a different way of collecting this data, actually, on the mode of transport and the documentation that is needed to prove that a student is traveling green. So that is done very much at an institutional level. And also in regards to the promotion of sustainable travel, we see that different universities have different approaches and different resources that they use also for their students. So it's a bit difficult to give a very concrete answer that applies to everyone, but I think it's very much up to the university to see how far they want to go with the promotion of green travel. I know that a lot of universities, also in our case, the University of Zurich, but also Porto University and Charles, on their website and in their preparatory materials, they promote green travel a lot for their students. So there are good examples out there if you want to know more about how other universities are promoting green travel and whether it actually has an impact. So I hope this answered the question. It was a bit broader, but thank you for the question. And we have one more question now coming in from Lea regarding the policy recommendations that, yes, are scheduled for the end of the project. You already have some specific suggestion that can be shared publicly and could be used as a reference more for institutions to promote green travel. So thank you for the question. It is indeed very also relevant for us. I think at the moment, there's a lot of ideas and suggestions that we have been brainstorming and talking internally within the consortium, but we don't have something more concrete or a policy paper or a one-pager to promote at this stage. But there's a lot of things that we would like to see happen and promote. And I think firstly, as we said already, promoting and sharing good testimonies among peers and among students is definitely very important for us. It has been very obvious since we started working on this project, and now we want to promote it and strengthen it even more with the testimonials and the student campaign. But also from an institutional side, there's, again, different approaches that can be taken here, be it with more voluntary schemes, opt-ins, opt-outs, or more mandatory options for students, for example, for short-term mobility, whether, because we know that some universities are indeed playing with the idea of giving grants to students that are traveling for short-term mobilities only for a green travel, and not giving grants for a student that is experiencing a shorter mobility, but they want to fly. So at this stage, there's different ideas, but I would, indeed invite you to stay tuned, and we will also share a mailing list that we have at the end. So once we have more concrete policy recommendations, you can be the first to know about it.
Maybe if I can also jump in, I think it is also, I mean, to form good policy recommendations that are also practical to the target audience, we need a little bit more time to evaluate how the current support for green travel is working, if it is indeed successful, if it really leads to an increase of students choosing a sustainable mode of transportation, or there may be other aspects that need to be considered. For example, how do you prepare students for their journey? We heard from some colleagues working with students that at the beginning students choose to travel sustainably, but then at the end something changes in their decision-making process, and there are other factors that come into play and lead to a change in their decision. So I think that would be very, very interesting for us to track down, and for that we would need a bit more time to gather more impressions and more stories as well from students to see also in a more comparative perspective how things have changed over the last 2 years, if I may say, or maybe a year and a half.
Indeed, that's a very good point. Thank you for contributing, Nelly. Yes. Yes, indeed. Yeah, short-term mobility and green travel, especially, there's a tension, a friction there. But I think in some cases, it's still worth considering the other options and still promoting green travel. But yeah, thank you for your comments. We have, yes, also one more comment from Daniela. That yes, in terms of planning, the mobility as a whole, of course, it's very complicated, and the specific options for traveling as such also can change because of different factors. But yeah, most students, as we know, of course, they travel by plane, either because it's cheaper or they travel, to do one way green travel, and the other way is by plane. So again, something that from ISAT has been very clear since we started working on this project is that every mobility experience and every travel experience is different. You could have two students starting from the same city, maybe they even take the same mode of transport, be it train or bus, or and their experience is also going to be different because it's also about perceptions and their different needs and awareness of their choices. But yeah, it's very interesting to try to find bigger trends in student mobility, and we're also trying to do that. So I'm going to wait for a few seconds to see if we have more questions coming in from the participants before we move on to closing the webinar. We have, as we said before, we wanted to also present some upcoming activities that we have in the project. But if there are no more questions, or if none of my other panelists want to add something. Okay, now we have a question coming in from Rosina. You're asking whether to plan to introduce sustainable travel as a separate topic point in the testimonial questionnaire. Currently, you can only choose one topic. So I think this is a question for Annie.
This is not especially something that, thank you for the question. This is not something that we've discussed so far, but I'm taking a note on it. I think it's a good point. Thank you.
So yeah, I think what you showed before is that when a student is filling out this form on your webpage, there's some questions about who they are and their mobility, and then you have a longer section, longer testimonial text, and then there's a drop-down menu of different topics, and there we introduce sustainable travel. And under this drop-down menu, they can add more and give a more specific testimonial on this experience specifically. So and we have one more suggestion actually from Lea regarding the for EU for All project to share more joint best practice communities amongst alliances. So indeed, that's also, of course, very, very helpful. And I'm guessing that a lot of you here in this webinar are part of alliances, and hopefully some of you are also trying to promote green travel and sustainable practices within your alliances. So thank you for sharing the link, and we will make sure to promote it as well. Maybe we have one or two more questions or comments from your side. Okay, thank you. Okay, then I will just go back to sharing my presentation, which I think you can see now. Yes. Okay, so now we are going to close up the webinar, but before we say goodbye, we still have some exciting things to share with you. So you've heard us talk about this campaign sometime already now, but it is going to be, of course, a very important milestone in the timeline of the SET project. So the idea is that with ESN, we're going to invite students that are preparing to go on the mobility for the next semester to actually enable them to travel green to their destination. So apart from some financial incentives, there's going to be a very guided communication preparation with them. So we're going to have preparatory webinars with the outgoing students to fully empower them to embrace their experience, to make the most of it, to communicate it well to other students and peers. And then when they come back, we want them to be ambassadors of green travel so that they feel empowered and they have the resources to organize themselves workshops to carry on the message of green travel. So also sharing more positive testimonials about green travel in the Erasmus Generation portal. So a lot of activities in relation to this campaign. But I also wanted to highlight here that we are going to launch an updated version of this interactive repository of green competences. So it's the board game that I showed before that was presented at the EA conference in September. So following this, the launch of the first version of the repository, we have had some validation roundtables and some discussions. I know with some of you also at the Student Mobility Summit in Barcelona last month. So based on your feedback and your recommendations, we're going to revise it and launch an updated version on our website sometimes later in 2025. Hopefully by the summer, we will be ready to do so. I don't know if Nelly, you want to add something here about the campaign, or if there's a question for it so far.
For the campaign, I can just maybe repeat, if you already mentioned that it will happen twice. The idea is that we will support selected participants who would first of all, how we are going to select them. We are still in the process of planning, but by the end of this academic year, we are going to launch a contest. Students will be able to apply, stating their motivation and expressing a plan for their sustainable travel journey. And then we really want to showcase their experiences so they can inspire, motivate others. Largely, it will be a big pan-European campaign. And then those students, as Salome mentioned, we want them to become ambassadors of sustainable travel. So we will organize also workshops before perhaps we launch the second round of applications for this contest. So we want to create also a spillover effect and like inspire more students to take this journey, even if they do not receive our support from the project, but to really encourage them to also seek the support that the program offers as well. So this is coming up, and we'll be happy to see students from your institutions as well joining. We also received a question if the webinars will be open to all students who want to attend. The preparatory webinars for the students, I think, will not be, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but those with the students who already went through their journey, I think it will be most beneficial if they're open and more students hear about their stories. So yes, the second type of workshop will be perhaps open.
Great, thank you, Nelly, and thank you for the question. I think we have one more regarding the contest. Can all students from any institution enter the contest? I think we have an answer to that.
Yes, we are still working on the selection criteria and the eligibility criteria because we still need to frame it somehow, but yes.
Okay, thank you for the questions and thank you for the context, Nelly, here. Since we have still 5 more minutes to go, I would like to also quickly highlight some upcoming events that we have in 2025 and where the SET project will be represented. So next week, we are very excited to go to Ancona for this edition of the Erasmus Generation meeting. Maybe some of you are already planning to go. But in any case, we will have a poster session titled Ready, Set, Go, Sustainable Traveling for Mobile Students. So as the title suggests, the idea behind the poster is indeed promoting the experience of green travel as an educative and transformative experience. And we're going to also start talking about the context with the students. And then we also have an Ignite session titled Think Smart, Travel Sustainably, where we're also going to be disseminating some of the project results. But maybe more relevant for you in this webinar is the annual EIE conference and exhibition that's taking place in September in Gothenburg. So maybe some of you have attended in the past or are planning to attend with your institution and your delegation. But we already have 2 sessions approved for September. So we have 1 poster and 1 fishbowl session. So if you're planning to attend and you want to meet us in person and keep talking about green travel and student mobility, feel free to reach out to us in September, and remember to visit us in the poster gallery area or for the fishbowl session. We will be very happy